is the second installment of the MBTV Rui Cunha Foundation Debates series of this year. We have been holding this cooperation since 2020 amidst the pandemic, and now that we already are post-pandemic, we are able to hold these events in person. And what brings us here today is basically the talk of the town that is ranking pretty high on literally anyone's agenda. We're talking about artificial intelligence, brave new world. It's a revolution in the making, and it's already all around us. It's taking place. Artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly and is having an unprecedented impact on our daily lives. And this is just the beginning. Its effects will be felt pretty much across the board, the labor market, education, healthcare, privacy, governance, security. As such, the role of governments, corporations, individuals, institutions, scholars, all of us will be particularly relevant in what is about to take place and how the development of AI will benefit humanity, but also the dilemmas, the moral, ethical, and legal issues surrounding AI. So we'll be talking about these issues, trying to come up with some answers to burning questions. And for that, we are joined by a distinguished panel of guest speakers. They are Professor Carlos Silvestre, professor at the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of Macau. His research interests include linear and nonlinear control theory, network control systems, coordinated control of multiple vehicles, also integrated design and guidance and control systems and robotics. Also from the University of Macau, we are joined by Professor Sara Migliorini. She's assistant professor at the Faculty of Law's Global Legal Studies Department at the University of Macau. And on my right, I have Vincent Poon, is principal at Meta Web Ventures. Vincent Poon worked in the tech investment banking at Citigroup, advising world-leading tech companies in mergers and acquisitions and IPO transactions, and moved to a bank managing capital markets and strategic development responsibilities. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome you all here at Rui Cunha Foundation, and those of us following us on Facebook Live. My name is José Carlos Matias. I'm the director of Macau Business and Macau News Agency. It's my pleasure to be chairing this session, and I think we're all excited to get it started. And I will start by asking the following question to the panel. Professor Carlos Silvestre, are we moving too fast when it comes to AI development? There's been some calls to put a halt on this fast-paced development that we've been witnessing, particularly over the past months, over the past weeks. Thank you.
We are moving as fast as it is possible, as in every kind of research, and the impact on the society is coming up. And I don't think that we can hold. We can legislate to make it compatible with our way of living, with our society, but I don't think we can stop it. It's going, even if we try to stop it, the companies and labs will keep working on it. Then you cannot, it's done. It's there, yeah. We have to learn, and we have to learn to live with it, and you have to take the profit that we can from this new technology that is coming up.
Thank you. So, Professor Sara Migliorini, in your field of research, you've been focusing on issues such as international litigation and arbitration, but also very much so artificial intelligence and big data. As a legal expert, there's a lot of discussion on regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence. What are your first 2 cents of the evening?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this invitation as well. I think that lawyers, we always a little bit catching up with new things. But to relate also to the previous question, I think that we are forced into a situation in which we have to regulate because the companies behind this research have decided that the product was good enough, ChatGPT, to roll out. And so, of course, we need to respond to that. And we need regulation. I think there's no doubt, and there's very little discussion in the legal field that we do need, not to stop it, as it was said, but just so that it doesn't only serve certain interests, but it's really good for everybody to access that technology.
Thank you. I just asked ChatGPT, should we regulate artificial intelligence? I don't know, the answer is coming, but yes, regulating AI is necessary to ensure that the development of AI systems are ethical, transparent, and safe for humans and the environment. This is just the first take. So I guess
he agrees with me.
He agrees, right? That's right. And how to maximize benefits, mitigate risk? That's kind of a main issue actually, which was addressed. It was ranking pretty high on the agenda of a very interesting conference which took place yesterday, held by the United Nations University Institute in Macau. You were also joining that conference. So what's kind of the main takeaway from this main question?
Yeah, so I think, as it was said yesterday at the conference, there's little doubt that we need to regulate. The problem is that no one really knows how. So I think the first step that we need to do as lawyers and regulators is that we need to be clear that whatever these products are, they need to respect existing laws. Because I think there are very many aspects of, for example, ChatGPT, that are problematic under the current regulations. So we don't need anything new, we just need to enforce what we have. For example, intellectual property, data protection laws. So that would be the first step. And then we also need something specific, and it's coming. Regulators around the world are discussing. We are witnessing, I would say, 4 different approaches worldwide. You have the EU. They are trying to come up with the regulation on artificial intelligence, try to devise this very comprehensive law, and it's getting a little bit delayed by the ambition of it. In the US, the process is slightly different. There's very little culture of regulation. And so it's happening bit by bit. For example, there are many bills that have been proposed regarding discrimination, because that's one issue that comes up when we talk big data. And so, and in the US, of course, they're sensitive to it. In China, the different regulators are putting out first very broad regulations about ethics, about respecting existing laws. There's been a proposal a few days ago, actually, which was very interesting. And I think China is moving in a nice direction and much more effective than what we are seeing in the EU anyway. And then we have other examples, like, for example, Singapore, where there's a totally different model, and the industry is very much involved with the regulators, and there's a lot of trust in the fact that companies will be able to self-regulate just by talking to the regulator and doing things step by step together. So we don't know exactly how, and there are these 4 models roughly that are emerging, but yes, we need some time to figure it out correctly. Sure.
Thank you, Professor Sarah. This issue of, on the one hand, on a global scale, on a wider picture, more of a global governance, but then there's a kind of a rather more fragmented landscape when it comes to the way each country or each bloc approaches it. We will revisit that. Now let's bring into the conversation the private sector. Vincent Poon, AI and the metaverse. What's your take on the discussion, and also with regards to, we're moving too fast, but of course in the private sector you may not be so fond of a highly regulated framework. Would I be right?
Well, I mean, like, I actually echo Professor Coller's point. It's something we just don't know how it's evolving. We need to go step by step, learning how it works. While at the same time we are coming together good regulatory framework. I think from my own perspective, I think the regulation is actually good, because it drives mass adoption if something is legal. If something is like not safe, not backed, not understood properly, not legally laid out in a way that how it's properly operated in terms of privacy, in terms of being open, in terms of safety, in terms of ethics, it's really hard to get like mass adoption. That's from my own perspective. So I think like a healthy level of regulation by people who understand legal, economic implications, and also technical implications is actually something super useful. But I would also want to add that sometimes like by regulations, there are also like technical means to help the regulation to be efficient. For instance, you know, like for AI, we want to regulate it in a way that there's no centralization of power. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't want like all of the bargaining powers within OpenAI, for instance. But when we're trying to decentralize the power, essentially we need to be more open, be more public. Then it might like come into a debate of how private we want the user data to be in order to be properly regulated. It seems like we don't have like really good technical infrastructure in terms of how we make something open while it's encrypted in a way that's private, that people are accepted. Like for instance, like when I look into this, blockchain might be a good way to use it because it's like open, it's on the chain, transparent, but then it can also be properly encrypted. So I also see like in different fields in technology, a lot of evolvement and improvement may actually go really well with AI to solve some of the issues that we might concern the most from a regulatory point of view, privacy, being openness, decentralization of like a centralized party of power. Yeah, I just want to know that like technical development from different fields might also be ultimate solutions to help regulations.
Thank you, Vincent. Professor Carlos Silvestre, you have been carrying out research, developing projects related to robotics, machine learning. Mm-hmm. Where are we now in terms of that path? And also, it comes to my mind Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. I guess many have watched. Well, this in the popular culture, there's always, of course, this blockbuster. iRobot, many may have been familiar with that. The first law, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Second law, a robot must obey orders given by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second law.
Seems reasonable. Yeah. However, we are just in the beginning. We don't have robots that do much. Basically, the robots do just little tasks, and they cannot deal with our environment. Our environment is extremely complex. Shares everywhere, bottles, glasses. So we have to identify that. We have to deal with this. Nowadays, robots, they don't. They don't deal well with an unstructured environment. Of course, we have many robots in the industry. They have completely structured environments, which means that the parts always come in the same place. They have to do a specific task. They do it very well, okay, like soldering or assembling or something. In car production, they have almost automated production lines, but in general, robots for our world, they are just beginning, which means there are a lot to be done, a lot. In terms of AI, it's a new thing. Of course, we have been working with it for a long time, and due to the limitations at the level of learning, at level of size of the machines, at level of algorithms, it's been quite slowly up to now. Now there are new things regarding the GPTs, the natural language models that are producing something which is not. There is no creativity. Okay, they are statistical models. We don't get anything new from them until now. Okay, they learn from what we give them. And we ask them a question, produce a text with this and that, and they get what they have, and they do it. And they do what they produce is the test that is statistically more suitable for the question that we asked. This is not intelligence. This is not, could be intelligence in some way, but it's not creativity, I'm sure. I'm not saying that creativity is not coming up. Of course not, I will not say that. But in the future. Now what we have is very basic and with a lot of failures. If you ask a precise question, you can smash ChatGPT very simple. Yes. You can ask for an information and ask for a reference, and I'm 90% sure that reference will be wrong. Okay? If you dig into, it's nothing there. Okay? And if you keep smashing it, it will answer to you, okay, that guy didn't say that, but he could. Yes, he could. The text is reasonable, but you cannot find it anywhere. Because this is not the real text. It's the statistical, the most probable text that can be generated given your question. Okay? Of course, this can help a lot. Yes, it can. You can get information very easy from ChatGPT, which is reasonable information regarding very general things. It's quite reasonable. But when you ask when you get into precise questions, we are still far from what we can get. Of course, there will be evolution, and this is just starting. And these machines, they
learn fast, right?
They learn fast, but they don't learn like we do. They learn and they then use this information. Okay? The next step will be learning while we are interacting. This will be, and they're learning new information. And of course, they learn from the internet. And we know that internet has a lot of mistakes. Internet has a lot of problems. They don't go into papers, databases. They don't go into books because this is protected information. They cannot, or they only use open information, which has the problems that we know. Which means that there's a lot to be done. And should those machines have access to books? I think, yes, they should. But we need to protect the information that they generate. But, of course, this is just the beginning. There are other views of the evolution of the technology, which means we have this for natural language processing. Of course, there is the same for video. There is the same for sound. Is it legal a machine gets my voice and produce a saying with using my voice, something that I don't want to say, that I would not say? This will be a problem. Yes, this is coming. This is already there.
Deep fakes are,
yes,
you know.
Yes, and then when this is put together, or it's already, because we only know a little part of the iceberg. I guess defense agencies, they have much more. There is much more that we don't see, that is not available. But anyway, this is just starting, and there is no magic. We just are getting information, not creativity, not yet.
But will there be an algorithm for creativity? There will be something that somewhere down the road.
Nobody knows what is creativity. Creativity is coming out with something new, something that creativity is not put together information and write a text. This is not creativity. This is information processing, and those machines could be very good on that. But coming out with something out of nothing, out of what exists, something new in any area, arts, design, a book, a new type of book, with like authors, human authors do. You have a new style out of nothing, out of his head. We don't have that yet. Okay, we don't have that, and as we don't have this for science, then we need to separate things. This is information processing, and the most probably answer to a given question. A good translation, for instance, you ask ChatGPT, translate me this in English. You get that translation, but you don't like. Give me another one. You still don't like.
Yeah,
change this word. It does that. Okay, which is brilliant.
Like an assistant.
It's an assistant, and I guess we should use it as an assistant. That's why I think we should. It's important to regulate those technologies. Yes, it is, but we have to use them to help us, because I'm not really afraid of this technology, because they are here and we have to live with them. And maybe in 10 years we'll be talking about creativity, not now.
Thank you. Very interesting points. And Professor Sarah, some students are not using, for instance, this is the craze about all of this, hype on ChatGPT. They're not using it solely as assistant. They're using it as,
This is a problem.
Yes, this want to bring the question.
This is a problem.
Yes, as educators, I believe that you've been discussing this. This is something relatively new, only no more than a couple of months. What can be done? Some universities, even just next door in Hong Kong, have imposed restrictions on the use of ChatGPT. How do you address all of this discussion?
Yes, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But it's also true, I think we all know that students have always cheated, and there are many creative ways in which you can cheat. So the problem is not it's just another tool that can be used. Mm-hmm. So of course our university didn't ban the use of ChatGPT, but of course the principle is that when the students submit a paper or any work, it has to come from them. So it has to be an original. That is what we say. And the rest of the policy is not so detailed. What I think personally is that I would love my students who, for example, are not very comfortable writing in English to write a text, an answer to a question, and then they can run it through a ChatGPT or a similar tool and have a better wording of it, right? Because it makes my life easier to correct. And I don't think that when they will leave school and become lawyers or judges, they won't have access to this. They will, right? So what my purpose as a teacher, as a professor, is to train future lawyers that will be able to actually produce good work, and there's no reason why they couldn't have access to assistance in that sense, then make the work better. The European Court of Justice has been using automatic tests and automatic translations for 15 years now, right? Because, of course, every judgment of the Court of Justice is in 27 languages, and, of course, they needed a hand with that. So I'm not against it. It's just that, yes, the issue is creativity, right? So the original work has to come from the students, and there are other uses of this technology that I think are acceptable in the education field.
Thank you. Vincent Boon, how about business development? Of course, it's an awesome tool. I mean, all of this that is, and also opportunity for a business development model, right? In terms of providing value-added services, because what you have here is, as of now, basically for free, like at least a certain level. But in order to get something way more advanced, fine-tuned, and tailor-made, you have a business model there, right?
Yeah, I guess like to start, right, I think it would be really helpful to just kind of get a little bit into like how ChatGPT actually works. Mm-hmm. So basically it's like, like in the first step, it's like pre-training the model. So basically it's like instead of looking left, Jose is looking right. So basically it's kind of like you give them a lot of the text, and then you're trying to train them to actually kind of know the contextual things and facts. And then the second step will be fine-tuning the model. So like basically you give guidelines to reviewers, and reviewers looking to talk to the model and trying to fine-tune it. So like you see that like ChatGPT is incredibly good at something text-based and rule-based. It might not be something like really creative, but then like how do you define creativity, right? Like if you are like writing a song, is it creative? But then it's a really rule-based, right? What kind of chord that would like sound really well together?
Talking about writing songs, there was this amazing story just a couple of days ago. It was not through ChatGPT, I believe it was through another AI-generated technology or platform. Some fans of Oasis, which is, as you know, it's a very famous British band. They're musicians. they're so tired of waiting for the new Oasis album. Not easy considering the nature of relations between the Gallagher brothers. But anyway, they're musicians. They did compose songs, but then they used an AI tool to do the post-production in a way that it sounds like an Oasis album.
Yeah. So I think like in terms of creativity, right? Like just doing another Oasis in the context of ChatGPT or AI, it's not creative. Mm-hmm. But then like, let's say if I say, let's think about how to make Oasis sound better. Let's try to use a little bit of Chopin chord progression within Oasis, and let's see if it's sounding better. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of thing that GPT may not be able to do today because there are not a lot of sampling putting into it. It's kind of like, let's say like academic research. ChatGPT can definitely help you solve equations, but then what are the next directions? What are the directions trying to solve it? You know, those are still the creativity that I see still remain in human's brain for now. So that's sort of how I look into like creativity and the technology and then the boundaries at the moment. In terms of business, I think I definitely see a lot of things that help like empowering people. For instance, it's like a programming API. A lot of people don't know how to program. Let's say I myself, I don't know how to like program. I was trying to write my algorithm to trade stocks. I'm trying to learn something called PineScript, which is like a programming language based on like a website called TradingView for you to trade stocks. It's a programming language. I was just like, ChatGPT, can you help me do like a strategy of dollar average cost investing? Boom, everything is there. I don't need to learn the syntax anymore. But I can look into the logic and tell, oh, what does it say? And they tell me, and then I try to revise the logic. So like, this is the thing that I think would be helpful in terms of business perspective. A lot of people just find it really, really difficult to use. But then AI can help the onboarding process to be so much easier.
What about NFTs? I mean, you are into it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So what's next?
I mean, like NFTs, a lot of people like to bundle it with like metaverses. Yeah. I looked into like so many metaverses businesses, but like the user experience is just really bad. You know, it's just like, why would you want to put the TV on your head, right? And then like, how is it so different compared to like Roblox or like something that people already have? So like, I think like we need to be really, really objective in terms of what kind of user experience that metaverse can get to. For instance, if you're Roblox, how can you feel like you're actually into like the Legoland yourself? It's really hard. Unless like what Elon Musk say, one day we got Neuralink, and then all these like interaction goes from your brain rather than like a screen to your eyes. But then what can AI make it more fun? Like let's say Roblox. You can say, oh, Roblox, can you help to make my world with a touch of Vincent Van Gogh's artistic style? Those are the things that like AI can do like, well, I can see in 2 years, like modeling the thing, you know, instead of you putting the Legos together, they do it for you, and then you try to guide them to kind of like rebuild whatever like the simulation games that we see nowadays have. Those are the limitations I can see in terms of like good playability and user experience. But then to be like real immersive, I think that's like, I'm a believer of what Elon Musk suggests. It gotta comes from your brain. It comes from the neural link and then how it interacts with the digital signal from the computer. That's sort of how I think. You know?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Neuralink. And before we open the floor to the audience, I'm sure you'd like to throw in a few more than a couple of questions and remarks. Professor Carlos Silvestre, Neuralinks in terms of what could come a highly immersive experience of the man-machine.
Yeah.
How do you regard this, and where are we heading?
It's starting.
Yeah.
I think it would be a way to communicate directly with us. It's coming up. I don't think it. I don't know how fast will come up. It's not easy. It's very complicated because even we don't understand how we work. Our brain is. We don't understand our brain. Basically, we understand the areas, some areas that are related to some kinds of thoughts, some kind of reactions, but we don't know exactly and suddenly it changes from the left side to the right side, and something is happened, and we don't know. And really, we don't know the micro. We know physically the microstructure of the brain, but we don't know how the brain process information. We have a rough idea of this. There is a lot of studies. There is a lot of money on this now for research.
And where are we in terms of what's being carried out at the University of Macau in terms of neurorobotics or more advanced robotics?
In terms of the university is doing like any other university in the world. We have to compete in terms of robotics. We have to compete in control. We have to compete in AI in terms of the world. And basically, what the universities do is universities work on niche, I would say, of areas that requires development. For instance, in terms of mobility of robots, sensing is a very difficult problem. I guess the most difficult problem is perception, because you look here, this is a glass. For you, it's very simple. For a robot, if you take a picture, this is what? This is a blue, something blue. You have to identify this is a glass. You need two pictures, you have to match the pictures to see the volume. It's difficult.
And the sensor may give a perception.
Just numbers.
Yeah, just numbers. Of the proximity or.
No, just can give you the proximity, but just numbers. You get it is blue and it is a distance of 40 centimeters.
So this brings me to the issue of self-driving cars.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. From this to get the perception that is a glass. Yeah. And I don't see the other part, and I imagine what that is. In my head, it's clear. I see this half of the glass and imagine the rest of it, and I'm able of taking it without breaking because I know the force that I'm going to apply. I know how to hold it. I know how to turn it. Yeah. This is extremely difficult. Yeah. This is not doable nowadays for a robot because this is perception. Is to get data, and get the information, and that. Very sophisticated information from data, just for a simple glass. Imagine you go into a scene where people move. You have chairs, and someone take a chair, a brown chair, and put a red chair, and for me it stays the same. But for a robot, it's not. This is perception, is where, and I think there will be a huge role on artificial intelligence in the next couple of years on this. I'm sure. There is a lot of people. There are a lot of people working on that, but we are just beginning because this is this is extremely complex. You see, you from a sensor, you just get numbers. It is blue. Blue is a number.
Yeah, it's a code. Yeah.
Okay, blue is a number and the distance, and you get a couple of points, blue points, with a distance, and from that, you have to build a glass or a bottle. And I see that this bottle is half. This bottle is full.
Is it half empty or half full, by the way?
This is a good question.
It's a good question.
But this is the complexity of the information, the complexity of the world. Where we live, it's still a lot to be done. It's going to go faster than previously. Yes, it's going to be, but still a lot to go. Okay, when we see movies, yes, they are very far from what we do. The limitation of the sensing, these sensors are the sensors that you get in the car, because they just get points, and from those points they have to get. They don't even get information. They get just places where to go, traces on the road, empty parts mixed with GPS positioning.
Yeah, positioning.
Yeah, and then something crosses. And,
yeah, there's a jaywalker, and then
yes, you get an event. You have to brake, and it's really it's doable. Yes, it's coming up. Yes, but it's still a lot to go. Because when you see someone, you see that is a human, that is a robot, that is a paper, that is the cars. They don't know, just an obstacle.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you. I'll open the floor to the audience here. Let's take a first round of remarks, questions. Who would like to jump in first? Anyone would like to? Please, Jill.
Thank you. All of you, thank you very much. Extremely interesting. We are told, and thank you, Professor, we are told that we now have robots that have empathy.
They are programmed to react to our reactions. They don't feel. They just... People study that a certain position of eyes and a certain position of mouth means something to us. And these robots try to mimic this in order to help elder people, to relax, in order to help us in these very simple tasks. They don't feel. No, they are just machines.
My next question, and my last before I turn it over to the floor. Do you think human beings could be in danger of being totally controlled? The
Skynet taking over.
No.
Yes, the takeover.
No. No.
You do not.
What I see is that this is like the cars. When the cars appeared in the world, some cities, they just didn't allow them to go into the city because they were dangerous. They will kill people. Now everybody has a car. I think this is a new technology. You have to learn how to live with it and how to use it.
How to use it.
In our how to use it. And it's a system with the delimitations. For instance, was mentioned here the students. Yes, there is a problem. But in some universities, people now ask students to use ChatGPT, for instance, to help them, but to answer to some questions. The thing is that we have to change as professors. Yes, we do need, because we cannot get the reports that we did before, just read them. We have to change. Eventually, more orality, talk to more to the students, know if something is there, or is it ChatGPT, or something else. But it's just a new technology.
Indeed.
This is my opinion.
Thank you.
So whenever we have an answer from, let's say, ChatGPT, we got to do three things: verify, verify, and verify.
And verify.
Yeah.
And if you dig, if you ask for why, you get the wrong answer.
Yes.
Always.
You may say, yeah, no. You saw my son. Why?
In general, it's okay.
Yeah.
The general idea, it's good. It's reasonable. That's, yeah.
Thank you. Please, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And my question is actually related to this issue about decentralized finance. Okay, so the point is that there is an issue about governance of decentralized finance, and also there are many varieties of so-called DeFi. So I would really want to hear from the panel what is the opinion about this DeFi thing. Maybe it might be applicable to the situation in Macau and probably the bond market in Hengqin. That's the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Carlos. Maybe Vincent would like to address this first.
Yeah, I guess to start off, right? What's decentralized finance? It's like based off blockchain technology. So what's blockchain is that, let's say we have like 100 or like 1,000 audience here. So like everyone got like a ledger. So like if I transfer money to you, we actually let all of these 1,000 people know that I transfer money to you. So like it's everything is done like automatically through like 1,000 servers, for instance. So like there's no trust, because now we are not going to say, Jose, I actually transfer money to them, and then like next people will come and ask me, how much money do I have? Then I say, oh, ask Jose. Now it's like everybody got a ledger. Everybody know how much money I have, how much money he has, and how much money other people have. So this is like the fundamental of blockchain and then how Bitcoin actually works. So like the catch here is decentralized. This is what decentralized, when we said decentralized finance, decentralization means this. we don't go to Jose. We go to everybody. Everybody got a ledger. Everybody got synced with the information. This is decentralization. So, and this is like fundamental blockchain. So like how decentralized finance work? I'll give you a really simple example. Like the very simple example would be, let's say now you have like a store. I go in, I put apples and oranges there. He puts grapes, bananas, different people put different fruits into it. Okay, now, next person going in, say, now I have an apple and I get an orange. How should I get an orange? I actually just put my apple into the store based on whatever ratio there is. I'll just get an orange out. In this process, the price of like one apple to how many oranges are based on algorithms. So the settlement of the entire exchange doesn't rely on one single person. It relies on one single algorithm based on how many fruits we actually already have in the store, which is kind of like an implicated way of understanding demand supply. So this is decentralized finance 101. So what's exchanges in this way? So everything is done on a blockchain. Everything is done on a decentralized manner. Without one single party, everyone knows how many apples, how many oranges, how many grapes are in the stores. Every one of us know. When we change, we also know, like based on that algorithm, how many apples I can get from one oranges, for instance. This is decentralized finance. So like my take on decentralization of blockchain in general is like the value add number one is trustless transfer of money. Instead of like now, let's say I'm wiring US dollars to Hong Kong, we essentially what's happening in the back end is we have like a US account in the US, like a virtual thing, just doing the settlement. But then when we do a blockchain, I only send to you. And then like we broadcast to let the 1,000 people know I sent to you. We don't need the government here to settle. We don't need the bank to settle. And it's like really easy transfer of money. This is like crypto, the value proposition from crypto, number one. Number two is crypto is really good at doing something automatically. Like in the case that we just mentioned. We don't really need a person, and then I can just transact with you. But then out of crypto, everything we need to talk to the bank, talk to the shop, talk to whoever it is. But now in crypto, I just transact with you based on an algorithm that all of us, 1,000 people know. So this is decentralized finance. So my viewpoint on decentralization, well, DeFi in general is that that's something that we need a lot of regulations for sure, because it involves money, it involves like transaction of money, it involves the banking system. Like we need a lot of regulation for sure. But then like how are we going to do a regulation that wouldn't kill the technology in general? Like something called algorithmic stable coins, for instance. It's a US dollars that's not backed by the government, but it's like backed by algorithms, backed by demand and supply. Whether this is something that that's acceptable. Maybe the US government say this is not. Maybe this is actually good for like the general public. We don't know. We are still trying to figure out. And we have a lot of regulation rolling out from the US and EU in general for DeFi. So this is, I think, the status of DeFi in general. From my own perspective, how does it integrate with a traditional finance system? I think currently it's really hard to say, but then like number one, payment infra is definitely there. This is a really good payment infra. Number two, I think it's like a really good alternative to gold. Just, a medium for value to be held on that. I think this is two. And then number three, it would be like alternative for people who actually want their money to be decentralized, not putting into a single bank, for instance. Like we have seen like crazy things about like banks like bankrupting in the US for, I would say, a little bit of not responsible policies working off in the US. But then like if it's decentralized, it's like you don't trust anybody, you trust the algorithm. You trust different things, I think. This is like an alternative value proposition to people who need financial services.
So you mentioned trust and algorithm, Professor Sara Migliorini. In God we trust, in algorithm we trust, in state we trust, because I want you to talk about the issue of decentralization and governments. governments, they don't feel at ease with all of this, be it blockchain technology, AI, all of this, so.
Okay, yeah, it's a layer question, answer that I want to give.
Yes.
So first of all, when I talk about regulation, I think when lawyers, we talk about regulation, it's not to stop any dream of computers knowing or robots knowing exactly how to pick up a glass, or a community of people just exchanging money without any problem at all. These are beautiful views of society that the law cannot really stop. But the thing is, when you move from the lab or the garage where you have these creative ideas and roll out products to the market, to the consumers, which are people who are not literate in this, minors, so children, people who are not expert in tech whatsoever, you need to do it with rules, right? Because otherwise it only serves the purposes of the people who are behind this technology. So that's what I mean by regulation. I mean regulation when you roll out this technology with the purpose of making money and to the general public that doesn't know exactly how all of this works. Right, so decentralization, it's a beautiful idea. And I've worked on the regulation of smart contracts, and I found it fascinating. And I think, maybe don't quote me on this, but maybe in 10 years, some lawyers will choose to learn how to code. Because if we want to participate in financial markets that are completely decentralized and use smart contracts, we have to know how to write those contracts. We now use words, and we may be able in 10 years to use natural language programming, but all of this is in the future, but certainly I want lawyers to be engaged more in this. But when you step out of the utopia and looking at the future that we want, the truth is we can trust the algorithm, but we really need to know who wrote it and why, and what are the benefits that this algorithm will bring to the people who have written it. And when we talk about decentralization, it's good, but we also want to know from the point of view of competition law, what's in terms of access to the technology, to the infrastructures that allows that blockchain to work, or infrastructures like ChatGPT to work. There's a big, I think, competition problem right now, because all the compute, the infrastructure that you need for most of this technology is in the hands of few companies. And when you have that, the law comes in and, competition, free market, and avoiding abuse of dominant positions. So I think that when we talk about regulation, we don't want to stop any utopian dreams. We're just thinking about how this beautiful technology that is brought to us can actually serve society, right? So I think that regulators are in this kind of mindset. Sure, this technology also brings with it a lot of power. Yeah. We know how, if we think about social media and how is it possible to swing elections with social media, we saw that with the Brexit referendum.
Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica, that is now proven. I think we can say it, right? So we know that all of this is very powerful. So of course, states also have a great interest in this, and they will use regulation to grab some of that regulatory space that it's out there. But I think the solution to all of this is for our civil society to be a little bit more engaged and keep talking about this and try to kind of, own the narrative about this. What do we want from this technology? Not being afraid of it, absolutely not. Don't believe the tales that, if there is a robot takeover, I don't think there's anything we can do about it, right? So let's just imagine that there won't be, and what do we want to do with this, right? So I think the regulation has to answer that question.
I think this also brings us to the issue of AI literacy and education, and to have a voice of the civil society in addition to the corporate world or the government or the potential big brothers that may be out there when it comes to either the private or the state. Anyway, this is another discussion or another something that would lead us to a wider conversation. But I am aware that we have some lawyers here. I don't know if anyone would like to, hooking on what Professor Sarah was talking about and saying about potential tools in the future in terms of coding or any other contribution and remark and questions. The floor is again yours. Please, Mr. Rodon Lopes.
Well, thank you very much
Thank you.
to the panel. Can we say that I see that most of the people are frightened with artificial intelligence, and even we already have here a different or some kind of problem that has been identified. Are indeed the programming of artificial intelligence be able to create? I think that this is a very important issue. Can I say that artificial intelligence can create in the proportionality of the human being understanding the process of itself? Because I believe that if the human being is able to understand the creative process, of course that this could be coding. Do you agree?
Thank you. Who would like to address?
I can
Professor
address
Carlos?
this.
Thank you.
First thing is that the models that they use now, we cannot consider that create. They create. They just, as I told before, they just give you an answer which is statistically the most probable, given the information that they have. They don't create. They can mix information, they can come up with a text, they can give you an answer, but given the information, they don't produce new information.
This is not my point. I understand clearly your point. My point is, in which way the programming process of artificial intelligence is more stronger as much as we can understand the creative process.
Okay.
Do you understand?
I
Because
understand.
I think that if more and more we are understanding the creative process,
Yes.
this could be indeed translated into code.
Okay. The thing is that we don't understand how those machines, we don't understand now how they work.
Because we don't understand how the creative process is done.
No. Even the neural nets that we are working, that implement those kind of models, we don't understand how they produce the output, which means we know how they learn, but they don't have an explanation. They don't give you an explanation how they generate that answer. This is a huge limitation that we don't have. When you create something, we can answer why. Why did I come up with that idea, and why did I build that construction? These models, they are not explicative, which means that you get what you get. We don't know, because they don't have a structure that can provide that answer, which means that you can't control the output, but we don't know how the output is generated. We don't know in the sense that, given the information, we don't know how the information is combined. Okay? And they don't provide this answer. Therefore, for the models that we have now, that we are using ChatGPT, in video, in sound, they don't are explicative. And this is a huge limitation, and this is a very hot research topic. Basically, they learn. They learn in the sense that they adapt themselves to the knowledge. They don't have these models. They are not like a computer. They don't have explicitly the information in a disk like we do in your computer. You go into a file and you get the file. No, there is no file. But you don't know how it is structured. The information is structured like we have in our mind. They are they are structured in in weights. They are not. There is no letters. There is no numbers.
But you are telling me that the one that make the program available is not able is not know how the program can with answer? Are you telling me this?
What I'm telling is that we know this is the huge neural networks.
Yes.
And what we can program are the weights. Not program. What we can compute are the weights. But given a net like that, you don't know where the information is placed, and you cannot retrieve the information. You can retrieve are the most probable answer to the questions that you ask. You don't have the information like you have in your computer, is what I'm telling you. You don't have the information saved in a disk. What you have is the information is spread all over the network, like you have in your mind. In your mind, you don't know where the information is. The information is, people think, in the links in between neurons. Okay, the way you process this information changes somehow the connections between neurons. In these machines, what is there are the weights between neurons, which neurons are not chemical or biological. These neurons are in computer, and these links are numbers. But you cannot, nobody knows what these machines know. They are not explicative. Okay, this is one of the biggest problems that is now facing AI, because if you don't know what is there, you don't know how to evolve, you don't know how to change. This is a big limitation.
I will now, if you allow me, we have more participants and from the audience would like to join the conversation. Please, João Encarnação, you're a lawyer. You heard my call.
Yes. Well, my question is for Dr. Sara. It has to do with how can we prevent, because legislation takes decades sometimes to evolve. It usually lags behind reality. And how can we legislate fast enough, given the fast development of AI? And also, how can we prevent, through legislation, that AI is used as a tool for governments or other entities to they themselves take over? I'm not too worried about the robots taking over. I'm worried about how the artificial intelligence can be used to do something that we are exposing ourselves to by living our lives digitally. Okay, so everything that we produced as a human, as a race, are tools. Even art is a tool for pleasure. But the question is, are we going to allow this? Are we in danger of allowing this to become a tool to be used for nefarious purposes?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so in terms of how can we regulate, this is, of course, a big debate now. I think one of the most simple things that we can do is say that before a product is rolled out to the public, it needs to get some kind of approval. And this is what some professors, a research center, are trying to do in the US, get the Federal Trade Commission to actually stop ChatGPT and do a review of the risk. And partially is also what the European Union is trying to do with the AI Act. It's just they're being too ambitious probably about it, and that's why it's taking ages. So one thing that we can do simply is, even if technology in labs and in research center goes on, because it should, when it becomes a product and it's rolled out to the public, it gets a safety check. And we can do that rather, or more quickly than, of course, regulating all of it, because you would have to create or readapt some regulators that already exist. For example, we have data protection authorities. You could add some manpower there of people that could review more specifically products that run on AI and things like that. So we could do that. That could be one thing. About the uses, there are many propositions out there, but we should think that we actually already possess very destructive tools, right? From nuclear energy to bioarms, all of this. And we have treaties, we have all sorts of agreements between governments that we are not going to use them, right? So if these machines are really as powerful as we are told, and probably they are, we need to come to some sort of international consensus, formalized in some ways, right? Legal ways, the same way that we're tackling climate change and other evils, and try to regulate that. Will it happen soon? That's another story. I don't know, but in terms of how, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. Like we're being faced with these problems, and we have the solution. It's just a political will to implement them. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. And if I may, just a follow-up question, or somehow related. Can we regard artificial intelligence as being neutral? That's one part of the question. The other one, how governments will tend to shape regulation or the direction of artificial intelligence in accordance with the core values, say, of the European Union, of China. This is an issue that is becoming more and more on the agenda. This is a rather political and not only legal matter, of course. Any take on this?
Yeah, so I don't think, I mean, maybe I will stand corrected,
Yeah.
But I don't think that tools can be said to be good or bad or even neutral. It depends who uses them, right? If you throw a rock, you throw a rock and you can injure someone. Yeah. So it's really, and again, there's no very clever solution to this. We just need to agree, and there is already there was actually before the pandemic and also during the pandemic, there have been some documents put out by the G20, by UNESCO, about agreeing. And we have, I think, a general consensus about what we want this technology to look like. But of course, the values are so different. So what we are probably going to see is different regional blocks with different regional views of what is good about artificial, what should be done about artificial intelligence. Consensus at the international level is, quite far.
I believe that Professor Carlos Nunes would like to.
I'm sorry, I'm here again. I'm Carlos Noronha, and back to the issue about decentralized finance. Okay, so basically, from my reading is that there is no trust, or there's no intermediary like banks and financial institutions, right? So the point that I would like to raise is that if the DeFi really gets implemented, so maybe Dodora just now has already answered partially, but what about the governance aspect? So I would like really to get some ideas from your expert advice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like regulation is always tough because, like from my own perspective, I guess just a really simple example, I used to work in WeBank, which is the digital bank under Tencent. So like the business model is really simple. You go to your WeChat, you click the icon, say I want to borrow whatever amount of money, then they will tell you like how much you can borrow, and then you lend it. It's really simple. In the entire process, actually it goes through a model. But then this model is done within WeBank. You don't really know what the model is. You don't really know if you click the icon, how much money I can get from WeBank. I don't really know whether my interest rate, let's say I'm saying like annual interest rate 13%. I don't know how it came from, but this is the price tag you got. Everything under WeBank. So like from the from a government perspective, how are you going to view it? I think the viewpoint would be, what's the purpose of the loan? After the person get the loan, how they're going to spend it? Why are you charging 13%? How much are you actually making? You don't really know. You can go to like WeBank and ask all these questions and ask them to give you the answer. This is like scenario number one. In a blockchain situation, there might be like a contract that says if I fulfill the requirement of A, B, C, D, E, let's say like I got a house, I got like a Bitcoin, I got like whatever that is, then I got like a credit rating based on this algorithm. From that based on that, I can loan how much money from the contract, from the pool, from whatever there is, and then when I need to repay it, what's the interest? From my own perspective, the second case is actually more transparent because everything is open. All of the algorithms, everyone who comes into the algorithm should expect the same output. How the algorithm is running is all on the smart contract, which is like public. From my own perspective, the second way of doing things is actually, from my own perspective, is a trend. It might be just like decentralized finance is something like immediate. But if I tied it back to AI, right? In like 30 years, so much more data is pulled into AI, and then AI give you an answer. Let's say I tell you, okay, tomorrow you should book this hotel, or like book this restaurant. But the output is going through Google. It's from Google server sending it to you. How do you know like how much of this information is being altered by any centralized party, right? You don't really know. Yeah. If let's say Neuralink become like a reality, all of your thoughts and everything can be like captured in terms of data, how much are you being comfortable with these information stored in a centralized server? Just from my own perspective, looking back, like looking toward like 20 years, if there's so many data about you flowing around, how comfortable are you with whatever type of data being controlled by one single party? Be it the government, the party would be government. I personally wouldn't be comfortable. Like people have a lot of private thoughts. You don't want the thoughts to be into a centralized party and then run like an AI algorithm and they're giving you back an answer that you don't really know how it's coming from. You don't know like anyone have already changed the answer from the AI model. You don't really know. So like from my own perspective, why I think like DeFi or like something to be open yet private is actually something so much better. This is my take on decentralized finance, but also technology in general.
This issue, interesting that you raise of this kind of concern that somehow looms large in some people's or many people's minds, which is when big data meets big brother and hell breaks loose. I mean, I'm being too dramatic, right? Of course, but just hinting at an issue that is, I believe that people are talking about it, right? That's how to strike the balance as a key question. Professor Carlos Silvestre, Professor Sarah, would you like to add something onto this discussion?
Yeah, just privacy is a big issue. We have to be careful of. You have to. Yeah, it's really because even now when you go into Amazon and you search a couple of things, you start getting suggestions of what the robot expects you to buy. Imagine that this happens in your life, in your banking, in your everything. Actually, For instance, Google now knows more about our dreams than ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we just Google it everything,
Yeah.
or then even what you don't want,
Yeah.
just and the other side knows what you think. Basically, this is dangerous to put everything together, and I guess
Yes.
no
and,
way.
and this applies both to big
Yeah.
corporations and also to the
Government,
almighty power of
everything,
the state.
everything.
Yeah, I guess also I would just want to add, just kind of like concluding it a little bit. It's like I believe it's a trend to be more open. So it's actually easier to be regulated, not only by the government, but also by all the other people who look into one single thing. But it always takes time for the regulators to actually understand the technology. You know, like everyone knows the problem about privacy. You know, everyone knows about the issue of who owns the data, how they are using the data. But what's the solution? I think a solution always comes from like a technological solution rather than like a process-driven, rule-driven solution. We need the appropriate technological tools to be implemented to be like an integrated part of regulation. But it always takes time. And in the process, it also, you know, the communications would also like involve like really complicated political reasons. Like people are fighting for something for their own benefits, and this is why we need to be like super conscious about when we are like ruling out new laws, new regulations. But I think the trend is there. I think like people know the importance of openness, especially like something like AI. So like I think it would take time. So like I just feel like it's never ever in the history that I think regulators need to have more people who understand technologies and who can actually implement technology based on our regulatory goals.
Can I add something?
Of course,
too?
please.
I share and I agree with most of these things. But I also think that, I don't know how much time do you think we need, but this awareness of privacy problems, of data problems, I mean, if you do some research, we have papers dating from 1998, 2000, academic papers of people who already were seeing this. And in the past 25 years, we didn't do anything. And the reason for that I think, is that the data is such a difficult object of regulation, because data is actually, well, it's nothing. It's just how tech companies and later on government wants to see us as human in the digital world. Is our digital kind of form. Yes, data is our names, sure, but it's also the traces that we leave as we go on the internet. And this is really valuable to tech companies who are the ones who develop the technology. So the technology is all oriented at collecting more data so that they can be turned into some profits. So when this is the technology, and the law, of course, is catching up, and it's on the back foot, because in the law, we would talk about privacy, sure, but we didn't know the idea of data. It's something rather new, because we've been forced into thinking about privacy as data protection. So what we are doing, not just me, but also my colleagues at the Faculty of Law of the University of Macau, is thinking about how you can actually, we can protect data, but it has to be a means to an end. And the end is to protect the human behind the data. So when we were talking before about this no longer private thoughts that you could have because people would think for you. So actually, if you look into anthropology and sociology, you have studies that show how important it is for everyone, every human, to shut the door, to be able to say, okay, I'm stepping out of my public identity, and then when I want, I will just,
the right to be forgotten, something like that?
No, it's not only that. It's the right to shut the door. I will call it like that, so that you can actually not be whatever you are in your public identity. It could be with your family, it could be with your co-workers. We all wear different identities. And when we are alone, this is a very important time for humans to recharge, so that you can actually have healthy social relationships. So if that is true, then the legal system actually protects that at the highest level, usually, with constitutional fundamental rights, for example, personhood, dignity, freedom of expression, but not free speech. That's the American take on it. It's just the freedom to be yourself, right? To express yourself with, a smile or a frown or whatever, you want to do. So if we know that this is what the legal system protects, then data, yes, data is important as a means to an end, maybe. But the regulation has to see the human, and it has to work for the protection of these basic human needs and basic fundamental rights in the end. So I think that what we're missing is the political will again to go beyond the interest of those corporations and then the governments that have adopted that technology. They really want to see us in terms of data. But we should be brave enough to see beyond data.
Are we kind of trapped in the situation where consent is something by default? Because you always consent, right? Accept cookies or consent and consent. But is that real consent? Or isn't it conditioned consent, I mean?
Yeah, of course, we are put in a position that we feel we have to consent, because otherwise you cannot use the app. But also in real life, I think as a lawyer, maybe someone will correct me, there are different layers of consent, right? So when you are the doctors and they ask you to, drill your tooth, I mean, you consent because, it's important, but then, it's not something that you really want to do. So there are different layers of consent, and we can imagine sometimes giving our consent in situations that are, not completely black and white, and we still give consent. So that's not the problem. The problem for me is more basic, that we shouldn't probably be in a position to consent most of the time. It shouldn't be commercial, right? The possibility to sell your own, for example, image. We know that, for example, personalities, celebrities, they have been making money, right? Selling their own image, right? Very famous cases in the British press about Princess Diana and J.K. Rowling and so on. Of course, a picture of those people actually sells and makes money for the press. And so they have a commercial interest and a right to use their image for that. I think it's a different game when we talk about ordinary people, right? That ordinary people shouldn't be put in a position that they can actually sell data, images, fingerprints, and whatever information about your body. There should be some, very, very radical rethinking of consent, I think, in this field. And I'm not the only one. There's the scholars that have written about this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to quickly add. I just wonder, sometimes I just feel like when we talk about data regulation, privacy, my thinking is people may not care about privacy as much as what we think. Well, when you use Google, you know whatever you type to Google, it's data. Your privacy shared with Google, right? Yeah. Whenever you use WeChat to talk to your wife about whatever, that's something that Tencent got, right? When you say like, I consent this, I consent that, you are giving out your rights, right? I think people know. It's
called the privacy paradox. It's actually been studied that people share more than they want. Yeah. But that kind of reinforces the argument that maybe this shouldn't be consented for.
And they share way more what they would online or on social media. They share way more than they do in real life in person, right? It's interesting, paradoxical. We have time for another 2 questions from the audience. So would anyone like to join the conversation before we wrap it up? Sandy? No, I'm sorry. It seemed to me that you were going to say something. Maybe I put you in an awkward situation. Oh, but I'm sorry. So please go ahead. You may introduce yourself and thank you.
My name is Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
So years ago, I tried to use the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies. So they ask, I need to create a wallet, and they ask for the ID. However, the verification was failed. So I never able to open the account to use the wallet. So my question was, is there a verification process that's bound with the government? So if I go to the bank, I open an account. So something goes wrong with my money, I can go to the bank and say, hey, something's wrong. But with the cryptocurrencies and blockchain, it's open process. However, if something goes wrong, because it's a digital identity that represents me online. So if anything goes wrong, is there any organizations or how are you gonna deal with that?
Yeah, it's a complicated thing here. So if you try to open a cryptocurrency account and it asks you for like an account, it's a custodial wallet, meaning that your money is actually being put into the company. Let's say if you just open like an account in Binance, it's like you give them your passport, whatever it is, and then you put your money there. The money is actually in Binance account on the blockchain. So if you look at the ledger, the money is in Binance. But what Binance does is like if you want to give it out, if you want to withdraw money from Binance, they will send the money back to you. So you place trust on Binance. You place trust on the centralized exchange. But this is actually good, right? Like for some people, because it's a hustle for a lot of people to actually own your own wallet. I'll go into that like next step, but like this is also how the case that you mentioned is not your own self-custody. It's a third-party custody solution. So what does it mean to be owning your own wallet? Like in current technology, it would be like you go to the blockchain, you set up one account, they give you like seed phrases, like 12 words or whatever random word that only you know. As long as you know the words, you can manage your account. No one can take it away from you, other than the people who actually got the seed phrases. But it's actually really complicated for a lot of people to use something like this. You know, a lot of the big coins were lost because people lost their words. So like this is really complicated, but then so what the industry has been heading toward is trying to give solutions that give you the own control while making it so much easier. Like something called like multi-party computation, for instance. Just give your words, breaking it down into like 3 portions. One portion may be saved in your phone, one portion may be saved in like another network, and then whenever you need to sign a transaction, you need to use that phone or like a device that holds a piece of the MPC secrets. So like in the blockchain industry, people are trying to make the entire custody solution to be so much more user-friendly. But then we have just seen the beginning of it. Last year, it only started from last year that like MPC wallets, things breaking it down without seeds, without all these words, are starting to, like, we start to see like better solutions. But that's something that people are working on. But then like one step forward, if you just can open a wallet online, what's a digital identity? So like this is also a part of the focus of like how much regulations we need to do, right? Rather, you need to do a KYC. If you want to use a wallet, and then let's say if you just want to get money out of the wallet to exchange it with like US dollars, with RMB, do you need to do a KYC in order for you to do that? I think the answer seems to be yes now. You can do whatever you want, but if you want to get the money out of it, or if you do like whatever sort of more complicated interactions, some form of KYC should be done. But I think this is sort of like how we are heading toward, but then we don't have a lot of clarity at the moment.
Thank you. We have time for one final question. Is it? Yeah, please. Is it? Oh, please. Thank you, Sandy. Oh, you can be calm. It's okay. It's okay.
All right. So actually, we are from the Macau Institute for CSR in Greater China. All right. So our question is actually not really a question, just a point of discussion about, just now I've made a few interventions already, so I'm sorry about that. I would like to actually ask about how can, say, for instance, this kind of decentralized finance or AI technology help, for instance, in, say, social responsibility aspects. Say, for instance, like, okay, you have one party and the other party, they're doing a transaction without intermediary, and without so-called, you say, trustless transactions?
Yeah, trustless.
Okay. All right. So, like for instance, then what about if all these transactions are done through AI, and then what about the social aspects of the people? Do you really care about the aspects like, say, donations at the very basic level, labor rights, etc.? And how do you really address these issues? So I understand this is a very preliminary okay, very first issue, all right? But well, maybe we can start a little bit of, say, little discussion.
And thank you. And Carlos, if you allow me, I would bring into the conversation for a final round,
Yes, yes.
addressing the issue of social
Because it's
responsibility.
also related to
Of course,
legal issues and also technical issues.
really broad and interesting. And I would relate to a term that I heard yesterday at the conference, the World Data Forum, which is digital humanism. So, based on this and on the
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would appreciate to listen to your opinions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So all these technologies, where should we place social responsibility and this kind of idea of digital humanism? For a final round, for a final take, Professor Carlos Silvestre.
I think we should care about that. We should care about that in the moment that those technologies interfere with our life and can interfere with our life. We have to regulate. We have to see where they are changing our society and the impact of now in the society. And this has to be regulated, I'm sure. I guess, yes, there will be changes, but they have to be we need to regulate in order not to jeopardize the lives of people, essentially, because there are lots of people that they are not aware of technology, they are not aware, and you need to be sure somehow that this will not jeopardize. That's I guess is when technology touches in the world, you have to take care of it always.
Thank you, Professor Carlos Silvestre. Professor Sara, people-centered AI, right?
Yes.
What's your final take?
Yeah, to add to what was already said, of course, you have to put the human at the center as an individual and as a society. And one aspect of social responsibility of companies that we haven't discussed, but I think it's important to keep in mind, is the environmental impact that building this technology has, both in terms of the energy that it's needed, electrical power, water, but also for the sourcing of all the components. They're usually not sourced sustainably or responsibly, but they are extracted from lands and communities in the global south. So I think with all that we discussed, so the users and you know how you roll out a product and the digital humanism, but also thinking about those that we don't see and the issues that we don't really see at first, but they are there. Yes.
Thank you.
Important.
Thank you. Final word, Vincent?
Yeah, I think when you talk about social responsibility, right, I think what we care is actually people's utility, the social well-being of people. And when I think about like well-being and utility, it's always a function of resources, food, time, knowledge, and entertainment, different kind of things. It's always like a scarcity of resources to be the key issue of whether people are being happy or being to be socially happy. Like from this perspective, if you look at AI, if you look at whatever we just talked about, it's increasing productivity. so that resources are being more sufficient without a lot of people actually putting so much time into it to just exchange for it. So I guess from this perspective, technological advancement in the way that leads to improvement of productivity is always good. From my own perspective, of course, there are a lot of regulations that we don't want people to use technology in a bad way to actually damage our productivity, to do something harmful to other people, and this is the goal. But then I think like fundamentally, the improvement of productivity is always good from my own perspective. And then like if you just look at like what Elon Musk says, like AI is going to displace a lot of workforce in different industries. For this perspective, he thinks we need to have universal basic income. Even if you don't do anything, you should get paid. I mean, like some states in the U.S., right? I think like they do universal basic income for like pregnant women, for instance. Like, isn't it good if we are not things are getting cheaper, resources are being more accessible, and then people can get it back in terms of time, in terms of energy, just to get the same kind of resources that we have. I think this is actually good. We just need regulations to make sure people don't use the technology in the way that is counterproductive. I think this is how I think about this. Yeah.
Thank you, Vincent, and that's a great topic for another round table. Thank you very much, you all who joined us here, and of course, a big hand to our guest speakers. Thank you, Professor Carlos Silvestre, Professor Sara Migliorini, Vincent Pund, and of course, thank you very much again, the whole Rui Cunha Foundation team. And congratulations on the Rui Cunha Foundation, 11 years. This has been, when we're talking about social responsibility, this is a living example of a great contribution to the Macau SAR. On behalf of Macau Business and Project Asia Corporation, I thank you all. We'll be back soon. We'll have another roundtable next month. Thank you very much and good evening. Thank you.